SkyTour LiveStream is now live. Go to the SkyTour LiveStream. And now we need to... It's all yours.
Yeah. All right. It's all ours.
Welcome to SkyTour LiveStream. I'm Mark D'Antonio, and I'm here with Keith Ickes and a whole bunch of other folks. We have Bill, New York Skywatcher, over in the corner running another camera who is streaming also to his location on YouTube, the Bill, New York Skywatcher YouTube channel. Off in the corner, we have Ronald, who drove here 20 hours from Minnesota. He lives on a postage stamp, by the way. And that's the shape of his town out there. It's a square. It's a perfect square in Google Earth. You should. We'll tell you where it is so you can go there and visit him at all these odd hours. Okay. Also over here on the couch we have Jade, we have Eric, and we have Mom, who is Bill's mother, who is behind me and kicking me. Stop it, please. It's amazing how she's hurting me. Okay. But in any case, I want to welcome you to SkyTour LiveStream. I know you're looking at the screen now and seeing a whole lot of nothing, and that's okay. There's a lot of people in this room that are seeing a whole lot of nothing as well. It's just because that is the nature of tonight. I have to tell you, coming to you live here from just around Newburgh, New York, is really somewhat of a feat because we've had a tremendous few days here, haven't we, Keith?
Yeah.
It's been tough. It's been...
Well, we've had, you know, we've had a tremendous couple hours.
Well, yes, but Bill, New York Skywatcher, actually had a pair of trees fall on his house because there was a tornado that whipped through here. And unfortunately, you know, more than one person lost their lives in that tornado. It was actually a very vicious scene, and getting here was actually rather amazing because we had to navigate around debris. Whole giant trees that were, you know, many feet across each were actually in our way, and we had to, like, stop and navigate around them. It was very, very tough. So it was very wonderful for us to get here. We're amazed that we could get here. And now that we're here, we actually are able to carry on and do this stream for you tonight. So
I'm sorry about the air conditioner noise in the back.
Yeah, well, sorry about the air conditioner.
But it's got to be on. It's just way humid.
Yes, it is. It's got to be on. I want to just find out from Bill. You've made some adjustments to the sound just now, and now it's screaming in my ears.
Yeah.
It's really loud. So how?
You gotta control.
You're number one.
I'm number one.
You're the low number.
One moment, folks. Let's see. Okay, here we go. No, I'm not number one. I'm not moving anywhere.
Well, it's upside down.
Well,
you're number two.
All right, well, let's try that. Oh, that's better. Okay. Anyway, so getting back to this, the weather could be quite fickle here on planet Earth, and one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm sure Keith would be excited about this too, because Keith is a big weather buff. Yeah, I just made him a weather buff.
Sure.
The thing is, Keith and I were thinking about all the weather we've had to face lately, and one of the things that we like is that this planet, of course, is our home. It's the world we live on, and we just evolved into this planet as it is. But the truth is, it's not the most beneficial place for humanity. How about that? All right. There are other planets out there that are called super habitable, and this one is not one of them. So it's possible. It's possible that we have a. It's possible that we have a planet here that we live on, and that we're just used to it. Yeah. But guess what? We might find a planet out there somewhere that is what we call a super habitable planet, a planet where we might actually survive without needing to worry about things like skin cancer from ultraviolet radiation, or earthquakes, or tornadoes like we had here and like we had in Connecticut, where I just came from earlier yesterday. So it's very possible that this is a planet that is good for us for now because we don't know any different. So if we went to another planet that was, you know, far better, we'd probably say, what were we doing on that Earth? What do you think about that, Keith?
We shouldn't even be here to begin with.
Well, thank you very much. And no, well,
well, you know what? Me and Ronald were talking about this earlier about how we were talking the debate between creation versus Big Bang stuff, and we were talking about how in either situation it's possible for control to come out of chaos.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of falls in line with what we were talking about with that. Basically, I'm trying to get the microphone to work good for you.
Well, yours isn't working?
No, I mean I hear it just it was sounding a little hollow. But I think the closer I go, the better it sounds.
I think that's true. I think they're very directional.
Yeah, they're very directional.
We're using these very nice boom mics here in the Bill New York Skywatcher studio in Newburgh, New York, in a secret bunker where no one can go to.
And you hear me and Mark on together all the time, whether it be on the P&K channel or here. So we just happen to be in the same room this time.
Yeah, this time we're in the same room, and it's pretty amazing that we actually got a chance to get together after all this trouble getting here, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? When's the last time we got together? Right after New Year, I guess it is.
Yeah, well, you came up to the John Zack Memorial Observatory, and
yep.
we did some filming up there. And of course, that's the observatory where SkyTour LiveStream originates. That's not where we are tonight, however. We are on location in Newburgh, New York, at Bill New York Skywatcher studio and location. So it's really pretty nice. He has a great setup here, and we have this 42-foot diameter screen that we're looking at. That we're looking at the sky from, and it's just amazing, I must say.
Yeah, even though the clouds are there, it still gives off a pretty picture.
Yeah, it does, and so it is a picture, of course, that we have to, deal with for now, unfortunately.
But guys, wouldn't you rather deal with a couple clouds than, the rain that's just been pounding this area for the last week? I mean, poor Paul down in Miami is just getting hammered day in and day out with heavy rain. I'm pretty sure that we can deal with a cloudy but non-precipitation night.
Yes, that's probably better. That's probably better.
Oh, now we can see the chat. Well, we were able to see the chat.
That's okay. Bill is actually navigating some things for us, which is really nice. So one of the things too that I think couples with everything that we're doing here is looking at the rest of the planet. We look around the Earth and we think there's a lot of places where a lot of violent weather is occurring, and actually violent situations. And one of them is at Kilauea out in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that happens out there, of course, is, and by the way, they just raised to alert red status, so that means that an eruption is imminent, underway,
yep,
or is expected very soon. Which there's no relief at this point because that volcano is actually spewing a lot of molten rock, and the problem with a volcano is they're unpredictable. We don't know when they're going to blow up. We don't know when they're going to stop. All right. Yellowstone, of course, is a supervolcano, which I know most of you know. But did you know that the last time that Yellowstone exploded and blew up, it left 3 feet of ash in what we call the state of Nebraska now. So that's quite a lot of material blown up into the sky. So I think that's a pretty impressive supervolcanic eruption. Now, when we talk about Kilauea is actually a rather docile volcano in terms of how fast the eruption occurs. It doesn't often take lives, but it may have in the past before we actually kept historical records, because Kilauea has been erupting at least now for the last 30 years anyway. And in the past, it might have erupted again. But see, the whole Hawaiian Island chain is built on these hot spots. They're like little hot plumes of magma that poke through the mantle and come up into the crust. And as the tectonic plates move across the Earth, a new hotspot pops up, makes a new island, and that becomes a chain of islands. That's why we have the oldest Hawaiian Islands are up in the northwestern part of the chain, and the youngest are down at the southeastern, or where the big island of Hawaii is. And it's pretty impressive to watch this and see how it happens out there. And that's the geology of this planet. It's really amazing. I know we talked about that on SkyTour Radio on KGRA, Sundays at 9 Eastern time.
Cheap plug.
Cheap plug. That's right. Okay. Moving along. But I think it's pretty impressive when we look at what's going on out there. One of the things that we have to also consider is that we also see that there's more than just lava that's coming out of these fissures and out of these vents at Kilauea, and the other thing that's coming out is this gas, and this gas is actually part of what they call the VOG, V-O-G. It's basically a cross between smog and fog. And it's really very acidic, and it eats away at everything, including people. No, you won't melt and be disintegrated with acid, but you will find that this VOG could actually become very, very dangerous to your life because your lungs will get inflamed, and anyone with breathing problems will end up having to go to the hospital most likely. And VOG will often make its way to the populated areas, and that's one of the big problems they have right now. So that said, I just want to mention that that volcano is something we're watching. Tornadoes are something we're watching. We also have hurricanes, and we have that was a lightsaber you heard, yes. You have hurricanes, we have tornadoes, we have earthquakes, and and just before the Kilauea the Kilauea volcanic eruption, this past couple of weeks ago, there were literally 240 plus earthquakes in a 24-hour period underneath the volcano, and that was really impressive to see that. So I would have to say that we're probably looking at a very active volcanic vent that's going to stay active for quite some time. Truly. Now on our screen, we can actually start to see a few stars, and I think that we're looking at Jupiter in the upper right there, and you can see the clouds moving across from right to left a little bit, and it's sort of a partially clear night, and maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll get worse, we're not sure. But Bill has set up his marvelous camera, which is nearly identical to the camera we used at the John Zach Memorial Observatory for SkyTour LiveStream, and we're trying to see whether we're going to see anything tonight.
No, it looked like earlier that most of the precipitation was staying south.
Yes, and that's good because
so
I found, what I found? Actually, Keith, I found that when it's clear here, it's usually cloudy at the John Zach Memorial Observatory.
Yeah, it's the same. We and Paul deal with the same thing down there, where usually if he's good weather, I got crappy weather, and if I got crappy weather, he's got great weather. So it just seems to be just the way the East Coast is shaped.
Yeah, it just seems that way.
Yeah.
It just seems that way. I want to take a moment to actually bring on someone else with us here. I'd like to bring on Eric, who is the MUFON director for Massachusetts. And we're going to get Eric mic'd up here in a minute. So just want him to know that he was coming, that he was going to be coming on.
He can come into this seat if he wants.
No, you're there. You're going to be asking him questions too. He's going to be in the hot seat.
All right.
We're in the question maker seat. So let me ask you, Keith, before we get Eric to come on.
Sure.
What did when you drove up here? How long did it take you to get here from where you are in Amish country?
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours. That's quite a ride.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. We got here about 3:30 and left down there Well, see, I had to go get a driver's license photo this morning.
You did?
That's what held me up. I was planning on leaving around 10 a.m. and it didn't work.
Wow.
So I decided to go do that before I came up here. So yeah, I left around 12, got here about 3:30, and the way I took this time compared to last year is so much better.
Yeah.
It's like mostly just open highway, coming up through Pennsylvania instead of coming up, past New York City.
Yeah.
95 the normal way.
Yeah.
But.
Well, that's good. So, I mean, you got here in record time, I think.
Yeah, faster than last year, actually.
Yeah, when I was on my way here, and I think I said I came here yesterday, but I came here today, didn't I? It's just been a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but when I came here today, I got stuck in this amazing traffic jam, and it was almost like we had to go in reverse for a while and then forward again. It was the strangest thing. But so as we move forward tonight, I know the stream is a little unorthodox stream, and I do want to say, Amish country's in Pennsylvania, Travis. I just thought you saw that. I thought I mentioned that. I did not. I apologize. And one of the things I wanted to mention was that as it turns out, the Pine Bush Fair, for which we all came here, has been postponed till June 9th. And it was done rightly so, apparently, because of the tornado that touched down and had knocked power out for almost everybody. Now, the reason we're coming to you live right now on the stream is because of the fact that Bill, New York Skywatcher, got his power back only about a couple hours ago. And it was just an amazing...
and we were celebrating.
We were celebrating. Amazing timing. Amazing timing, because that meant we could bring you a nice SkyTour LiveStream tonight. And it meant that we could actually bring on the people that are here to say hi and let you know what's going on. So we're waiting again for Eric's mic, I believe. Are you on?
Well, there's the mic, and I also need to hear what's going on.
No, you don't need to hear anything.
Yeah, you just need to hear Mark. That's all.
Yeah, you only need to hear the questions, but that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're just hearing ourselves in our ears. But we'll hear you, and if you're talking too loud, does your mic even work right now? No, I don't think so. It's not plugged in anything. So
We should ask chat how the audio is. Is the audio holding up pretty well for everybody?
Yeah, the audio is the audio.
Slapped it together.
I saw some folks in chat saying you sounded like you were a little distant, but I think that's been fixed.
Yeah, the closer I get, like I can. But you know what? I wonder if I need this thing. Hello. Oh, Jesus.
Yes. Afraid
I need
so.
that thing.
You need that thing. Yes. Yes. Keith took the little. There's a little windscreen. It's actually sort of a screen to prevent you from popping the mic.
Pop, pop.
You know, pop, 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 and it's a pop screen. And he picked it up to see if he needs it, and he said something into the mic and probably destroyed some of your ears out there.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. It's all right. Okay. Come again. So anyway, what we're doing tonight is, like I said, it's a little bit unorthodox. We're actually spending a lot of time just trying to
Fiddling.
Yeah, fiddling. Just getting ourselves, having some fun.
I've seen less cables at a rock concert.
Yeah, actually, the Bill's little broadcast studio was actually just chock full of cables everywhere.
Yeah.
And we actually have a live audience. Let's hear you from. Say hello, everybody. Hey. There we go. See? So we actually
Now
have.
shut up.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's a good. See, Keith engenders new followers like that. It's just wonderful.
It's our role.
Yes, thank you tonight. It says, yes, this is much easier to hear, and thank you, Travis, for letting us know. Yes, that's good.
Awesome.
So now, as we say, now we're not going to be able to show you anything like you see in P&K, in P&K, space imaging, because we don't have Paul's telescope to look through at the moment, and we're not going to be able to see Jupiter the way that we see it in our observatory because we're not at the observatory. So this is just a wide-angle view, and I think that's pretty cool. Anyway,
I hear it.
And Eric is with us, right?
Yep.
All right. So, what I want to do, Eric, is I'm going to start right in and just have you tell us a little bit about what you do for MUFON in Massachusetts.
Okay.
All right, good. Thank you. Well, anyway, moving right along. No,
Before we do
I know.
that,
You want to
just
just
put a filter on.
Yeah,
first.
he's gonna put a little.
Give him a pop.
He's gonna give him a filter. There we go. So he's taking care of that. Yeah.
Okay, Eric, you're all set.
All right, Eric is all set.
There we go.
All right, so Eric, tell us what you do for Massachusetts MUFON, will you? And that's the Mutual UFO Network, for which I'm the chief photo and video analyst. But Eric will tell you what he does.
Well, as UFO cases come in, anyone reporting a UFO sighting in Massachusetts, I'll get it and review it, look at how I'm going to handle it. Many cases, I want to do an interview. I try and get an interview of the person who reported the UFO sighting.
Okay.
And I like to do a telephone interview and paint a picture in my own mind is the way I do it of what's going on. Ask them various questions and see what they saw.
Okay. Do you have any cases that stand out in your mind as different? Because many times what I see in my line of the business is I actually see people showing up with images of birds and other things that have, basically ordinary objects captured in extraordinary ways. I see that a lot. And what I'm asking is, have you seen anything that doesn't fit that particular characterization?
Usually it's a story of something they saw. And they didn't take a picture or whatever. Some of the, there's been cases where one stands out in my mind.
Yep.
A girl that was, she was out in a boat, her and her sister bringing a guy that night home, sort of in a cove on the lake where they were staying, and on the way home stopped and saw, your classic flying saucer with lights on the bottom panel. So some of the best cases are just, seen described, whereas pictures, not a whole lot. I mean, you want good evidence, but another case that stands out in my mind from the last month or two, doing interviews and stuff, was something followed people down the Mass Pike, which runs straight through the middle of Massachusetts from east to west, describing it, and then, the one person filed the report when it happened 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until just recently another person filed the report of seeing the same thing, following a craft following them west, where the first one was following the craft. They were following this craft, seemed to be pacing with the person going east on the Pike, and very interesting that they both described the same thing. Something like that catches my mind. Very interesting. Means a lot to me.
That's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember once I got a call from state police in Connecticut. It was 2 or 3 in the morning, and they wanted me to help them with a case that was occurring. It was happening dynamically, and it was a case where this big greenish lit object. When they said greenish, I already had a suspicion in my head. Was crashing into one of the lakes, a lake called Bantam Lake in Connecticut. And I said, well, okay, there's a couple things you can do. If it's crashed into the lake, then there's going to be a disturbance that you'll see on that water. And I asked if there was a boat ramp, and I said, go to the boat ramp and see if you can see that there was a wash up of water that may have occurred there with debris higher than normal. Because if it was an object of any size, it would have made a huge splash. So there was nothing there. I said, well, check also in the branches of the bushes and trees around that lake and see if there's any debris way up in the upper parts of those branches. Like just like a foot or two above the lake's surface. Because the lake doesn't have tides like the ocean. So I asked them to check that. They didn't see anything. So it was kind of as I suspected. It was an ordinary object, a meteor, but a meteor that was what's called an Earth grazer. It actually crosses over the Earth's atmosphere and goes horizon to horizon. And from the state trooper's point of view, it looked like that thing was heading down into the lake. And he saw the glow of it in the water and the glow in the sky. And where they met, he thought it hit the lake, but actually that's where it went over the trees at the far end of the lake. Very impressive. Very impressive. So, again, ordinary objects captured in extraordinary ways. I don't know what they saw your folks had seen, but, one of these times we're going to catch something. And that's why, I'm working on that UFO detection system that you already know that we're doing. It's most people know it as UFOTOG, UFOTOG-2, UFOTOG-2. But the name is new now. It's the Aerial Anomaly Detection System. And we did that because we discovered that when you have the word UFO in the title of anything for research, people don't consider it research. They consider it, silly, and you get a tinfoil hat in order to pursue anything else. Well, what we're actually just doing is something that can actually be used for something. It can actually be used to look for meteors like we just talked about, or it can be used to look for the killer asteroid, perhaps, if we do longer exposures with our sensors. So there's a lot, and I think that it's very important to consider that new instrumentation and new ways to look at things are going to change and revolutionize the UFO hunting arena. I mean, what's a UFO? I mean, what do you call, what's a UFO to you? I mean,
okay, to me, a lot of people bring up the fact that UFO is simply an unidentified flying object. So if someone threw a baseball over the house during the day, you looked up, you didn't know what it was, yeah, they could say it's an unidentified flying object. But in the business, when you'll hear people saying, well, is that a real UFO? They use that terminology. Is that a real UFO? They're considering a UFO, quote, UFO, as something, interstellar, whatever.
Yeah, and so when they ask you, is it a real UFO? I mean, I think the question they should really be asking is that something we understand? Or is it something we don't understand? Make it more of a generic question, right?
Yep.
Because I think to me, UFO is just, as you said, unidentified flying object. Okay, yeah, we have the definition. We get that. We both get that, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
But what's it really mean? It means that there's potentially an advanced alien species that made its way across the vast gulf between the stars and found us here and came here to see us.
Yep.
Now, I've had experiences. I've reported a number of experiences. Again, I'm a science guy. This doesn't happen until it happens. And then I got to figure out what I'm going to do with it.
Very rare.
Yes, it's very rare. But when I was on the submarine, okay, as a guest of the Navy, we had this USO, an unknown submerged object. I had no idea what I was looking at. In fact, when the sonar kid, he was a kid, alerted the executive officer to it, he said, con sonar, fast mover.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, fast mover? To me, that was a torpedo. I was thinking, oh, great, we're going to get killed out here. We're going to get shot by a freaking torpedo on the North Atlantic. And it turned out that it was this really faint trace that and it was loud. I mean, you hear this ambient noise in the background here, folks. You can hear it as the air conditioner. Well, actually, that's kind of what it sounds like on a submarine. It's actually loud. Okay, there's a lot of talking, a lot of people, over 125 people on that boat, and there's always noise around you. But the Navy prides itself on the fact that the sound does not get out. And that's why the subs are the quietest in the world, our subs. Well, anyway, this object was tracked moving underwater at some distance and bearing, that is, angle from the boat, that I couldn't hear the kid tell the guy, the executive officer. But I did hear him say how fast it was moving. And he said it was moving, and this is exactly his words, several hundred knots, sir. Now, he said that a little bit faster, and I was just emphasizing that. But that's just incredibly fast. And nothing we know does that.
Yep.
And so we know they're here, Eric. You know that. I know that. Mm-hmm. And so it's a matter of trying to catch them. But we're not going to catch them with a cell phone camera. We're not going to catch them with a cell phone camera or anything else. We're going to catch them with science. Science is going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
I think it could happen. I mean, it's just the odds. The odds may be. It may be a very rare occurrence.
Right.
So someone could have their cell phone out and catch something like that. You never know.
But is it valid data? I mean, the data won't be valid, in a sense, because there's so many ways to fake videos and all kinds. So we need to have some type of platform that captures any of this activity with multiple instruments all looking at the same sighting. That's what our thing is doing. And I'm not saying that cell phones are bad. I'm saying we need it all.
Yep.
Absolutely need it all.
Mm-hmm. But that footage is not necessarily the best footage.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is Bill, New York Skywatcher, joining us now. Hello, Bill.
And hello,
Welcome
Mark.
to the evening.
Now, I just want to let everybody know in chat, if you got any questions, I will ask Mark, Keith, and Eric.
Don't ax us.
Axe.
Oh, don't ax us. No.
Yeah.
And hello to everybody that's watching on SkyTour LiveStream. And we're hopefully going to be doing a live presentation. We're planning on it from the Cup and Saucer in Pine Bush on Saturday night with Commander Cobra.
Yes.
And Keith will be there and a few others. So hopefully we'll make that happen and we'll be live streaming it on SkyTour LiveStream. But I wanted to ask Eric here, as state director of MUFON in Massachusetts.
That's right. He's a big man.
What is the procedure when it goes reported first to a field investigator and the process taken from there when there's credible evidence, let's just say a photo, that needs further analysis or something that goes up the chain of command?
Yeah. Well, kind of what you're both bringing up is, in a sense, is what about photo evidence that's really good? Something I would hope that something really good would come in, and then we wonder, anything video really these days could be faked or misinterpreted, but could be faked. I think, in my opinion, I think they kind of they're probably cloaked. I mean, something where you can't see them is going on is why we don't have now. A lot of people are carrying around cell phones these days, which have a camera.
Yeah.
So
you
would think the odds are increasing, and that we would see something. But so if something looked really good, yes, it's got to go up the line to be checked out.
Okay, so my next question is, when does it become relevant where you are communicating with Mark D'Antonio, who is the photo video analyst of MUFON?
Okay, I've done that a couple times now, and that's usually when there is I have other investigators who are not seeing things the same way I am, as far as either debunking. It's usually debunking. If people don't understand what they're looking at in imagery, and you got to realize that with cameras, different cameras, webcams, there are a lot of factors to how cameras work that a lot of people, you can't just understand what's being seen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know how that camera works to get an honest opinion of what's showing through it.
I agree.
And Mark's, what's your part? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true. And part of the problem we have is that to do photo and video analysis, you can't just be someone who knows how cameras work. You have to also know how the human eye works. You have to know what human nature's like. You have to understand astronomy. You have to understand some physics. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's well, it actually is a specialty. It truly is, because you have to understand how ordinary object could be captured in an extraordinary way. And I use that phrase a lot, ordinary objects captured in an extraordinary way, because that's exactly what we're seeing a lot of times. Yeah. I'm not saying that people can't capture something with an ordinary cell phone. They have, and they've been very, fantastic. But most of the time, what they report an object doing is not what is actually seen on the video that they might have captured. So I don't say to people, you captured just a satellite. If it looks like a satellite, I'm not going to say, well, it was only a satellite. The reason I don't is because they might have recorded something very differently, or they might have seen something very differently, but they only recorded a part of it doing something ordinary.
Oh, you're a dream crusher. Just admit it. You've told me it was a satellite 3 times already.
Keith Ickes. You know what? Well, Keith knows that when he's had on P&K Space Imaging, one of the finest channels you can go to and become a member of. Subscribe to that, please, and hit the bell. Keith Ickes will tell you that there are a lot of these black objects that cross the moon when they're doing these lunar streams. Yep. And I actually wrote a computer program for him to actually calculate if it's a satellite, how far up it has to be, what its altitude has to be a satellite traveling at the speed we see it crossing the moon. Now, the moon is about half a degree in size. That's 30 arc minutes of size. So if we see it cross a portion of the moon, we calculate how much of the moon it crossed, extrapolate that to the full, half a degree, basically, the 30 arc minutes, and figure, okay, since that's how much of it, since that's how fast it took to cross the moon, half the moon, the disk of the moon, we can then calculate the speed it has to be in orbit, and thus the location it has to be in orbit. And doing so gives us an idea, for instance, if this is like a satellite that's, 10,000 miles out, 200 miles up, or 1,000 miles up, we can get a fairly good estimate of how high in altitude that satellite would be. Now, is everything a satellite? No. We actually saw something on one of his streams, which I think was a high-altitude balloon, because it looked oblong, and it really did have a definitive shape. And whenever you see something with a definitive shape, especially with the magnifications that Paul was using in Miami at the time, then you have to think that maybe that's something a lot closer than orbit. You can see the International Space Station, but it's very small on frames.
I'm going with aliens.
And Keith will go with aliens. You know what? So we'll just say it was aliens.
It was aliens.
Yeah, and we have to just mess up our hair, to look like have that big.
Well,
messy
Jade
hair.
had a nice hat on earlier.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. Were you here for that, or maybe you were?
I might have been.
I'm not saying it was aliens.
But it was aliens.
Yeah, right.
That's okay. I've heard that before. That's funny.
Well, it probably was aliens.
Yeah, it probably was. So but as you can see from what Eric's telling you, Eric, the director of MUFON for Massachusetts, when you listen to what Eric's saying, what Keith is saying, and some of the things I'm saying, you understand that trying to find UFOs and trying to see whether we are being visited by some type of advanced extraterrestrial civilization, it's just not that easy. And one of the other problems we have is that when we look at oh my, we're just visited by something, as you'll see. When we think about how totally lost my train of thought when that happened. I had such a good point too.
And then you lost it.
I had it and then I lost it. It was like boink. Oh, and look at that, So anyway, where was I? Oh yes, I was over here. So no, that was funny. Bill New York Skywatcher, was responsible for that. And then wouldn't it be funny though if everybody was still in here when it happened?
That was Bill, by the way.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you know. That was Bill.
He's got his hat back on.
Yes, that's the hat. Now there's the hat that we can all rally around, because that's the kind of thing that we've all been accused of wearing from time to time.
You look like a mentally deficient tin man.
I like beans.
This is the if you're watching the video behind me here, this is Marvin the Martian on steroids. Okay, it's like he's got a strange hat on, but I'll tell you one thing. I did a talk out in Phoenix, and I actually I went as a character that I've created called Clem, and Clem was.
Oh boy!
No one knew. Yes, that's true. No one knew at this talk that it was me. And what happened was, there's the director from Arizona MUFON was talking in this big amphitheater full of people. There's this guy that comes in with this little, shirt on, just going doopy doopy doo, and he's dusting with a feather duster, like little pictures that are all around the room, and doing all these motions. And it's Clem, and Clem makes his way toward the director, and he hears that the director's they're doing a UFO meeting, and he interrupts the director, takes the microphone away from him, and says, "A UFO? I had me a UFO sighting." And he talks about the UFO sighting. And meanwhile, everybody in the audience, some of them are yelling, sit down, this is our meeting. Who do you think you are coming in here? And Clem just went, I know you're talking about UFOs, and I know about them. I saw one. They killed my dog, Petey. Came down and slammed in the driveway. Boom, he's dead. Why he couldn't do it to my wife Eunice, I don't know, but he took my dog, And so he ended up doing that. And then finally, they the people that were saying, sit down, be quiet, shut up, get out of here. When Jim out there, the director, introduced me as the speaker, I took off the disguise, and it's an instant transformation, because it's a simple disguise, but no one stares because the teeth are all rednecky and buck tooth and a little gold tooth. Well, anyway, when he takes all that off and the people see it's me, I visibly saw several people in the audience sink deeper in their seats because they didn't want to be remembered as the people that told me to shut up and sit down. But it was kind of funny. But I talked about that when you saw Jade with his tinfoil hat here on the video behind me. That's on Bill's channel. That's right, Bill New York Skywatcher's channel, not on the SkyTour LiveStream. Okay, we're just showing the outside, but on Bill New York Skywatcher's channel, there's a simulcast showing this thing from the inside, showing the video. So when Clem got to the podium, he put on his tinfoil hat and said to the crowd that, hey, the news people gave me this and said I should always report these UFOs when I wear this hat. And the whole point of dressing up like Clem was actually just to make a point. And it was that, the media does make fun of us. It makes us look like idiots. And it says, here's a tinfoil hat for you, and they make us into the tinfoil hat crowd. But, my talk was about extraterrestrial life and the possibilities, not saying that there's anything for real.
From a scientific perspective.
From a scientific perspective, just like SkyTour Radio, right? Look at the universe through the scientific lens. I mean, that's what we do. And it's UFOs and unidentified flying objects and the extraterrestrial possibilities through the scientific lens. What's the science tell us? That's what this is about. It's not about trying to, find the exact answer right now. It's just saying, look, all we're trying to do is show you with science that certain things make sense to discuss and certain things do not.
Now, from a hypothetical aspect here, from all the exoplanets that have been discovered, is there a percentage that you could put on that the possibility of life could be sustainable, even if it's microbial, on these exoplanets?
Well, yeah, actually, that's a good point. And one of the things that we talk about with exoplanet life is, and those possibilities is the planet something, a planet that's in what's called the habitable zone. The habitable zone is that zone that is basically not too hot, not too cold, and that that you can have liquid water on the surface. And if you can have liquid water on the surface, it means that you can probably have life like we know life. That is life based on the carbon-based life forms and that came from the ocean. If you lick your forearm, it's salty, and there's a reason for that. It's because within your skin you contain salt water. And the reason you're salty is because we came from the ocean. And coming from the ocean means that we actually have this vestigial ocean that we carry around with us like turtles, all right, on our backs. So it's just salt throughout us. And our skin was developed to actually contain that ocean. So that's what, we came from the water and the salt water. And that's, when people say, well, life might have been planted here. Well, that's a tough call because we have all this salt inside of us that matches the salinity of the ocean, and so that's kind of a big, a big thorn in the side of the people that say we were planted here.
But what about the proposition of panspermia?
No, panspermia means that life came here from elsewhere, and that's, we don't know. But I can tell you this: we know, probably with a fairly high degree of certainty that, because we've seen it before, that meteorites and comets have delivered amino acids to this planet as well as water, and the amino acids are the building blocks of life. Those were delivered here by these things, as well as the Earth itself had the ability to generate and make them.
Now, someone made a comment. I think it was Prow actually, in Toronto. He said we're salty because of the ocean.
Yeah, that's right. We originated in the ocean, and when we finally got out of the ocean, we actually took that salinity with us in some small measure, and that's why we have this salt within our bodies. Now, to be sure, the sodium atom and the chlorine atom, they do bond together. Okay, one likes to give up an electron, and one needs an electron. So it's sort of a marriage made in the water. As soon as sodium and chlorine meet, they actually do form this bond. All right. Now the bond is easily broken. That's why it can dissolve easily. But think about this: whenever you run water over the surface of rocks or whatever, one of the things that you'll find is that you'll find that you actually have an ion that will get, an atom that can get dislodged easily, and those atoms that can get dislodged easily are things like sodium and chlorine. They will get dislodged easily. So, go ahead.
If anyone has questions, I got to put my mic on. That would help.
That would help, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If anyone has questions in the SkyTour LiveStream chat, please do so now. I'm watching the chat, and we'll ask Mark, and hopefully Keith will be joining the table soon. And I just want to let everybody know that we may be doing a live presentation of Mark D'Antonio, what was scheduled to be done at the Pine Bush Festival this weekend. Well, he's still going to do it on June 9th at Pine Bush, but you may all get a special treat here on SkyTour LiveStream with, I would say, maybe tomorrow or Saturday night. And you need to be aware of that. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. Click that little bell icon on the upper right-hand corner of the screen on YouTube. Subscribe. This way you get the notifications. And you're going to get a special treat because Mark's going to do on the projector screen, he's going to do an actual presentation that he would have done at Pine Bush, and he will do on June 9th. So make sure to tune in to SkyTour LiveStream either tomorrow or Saturday, and we'll give you further details. So that's going to be something really special for everyone. So going back to Mark, when you seen the Tom DeLonge and those that were related to the Stars Academy, what was your reaction and your final assessment about the videos that were released by these individuals?
When I looked at those videos fairly extensively, and one of the things that I discovered or felt that was true was that they don't really show the whole picture. Clearly, this was a segment of a much longer recording. All of these videos were. For what we did see, I was able to determine, to my satisfaction, that there was nothing there conclusive at all. There's one called the gimbal video, which shows something rotating, and it looks like it's rotating. But what happens if you look carefully, you'll notice that the entire scene is bouncing every time that object seems to rotate a little. And that rotation of the scene indicates that it's something inside the Raytheon infrared pod that's slung underneath the wing of this F-18 Hornet. So it was something else that was going on inside that pod that caused that. Then in the first video that they came out with, the FLIR 1 video, that one also didn't have anything conclusive that I could tell in watching it. It's just then they brought out a third one, and then the third one had a very small object that looked like it was racing really, really fast. But I wrote a program to actually calculate how far away it might have been and how fast it may have been moving based on the speed of the aircraft as well that was taking the imagery in the infrared and the look angle. It was looking down at a certain angle with this pod. And based on all that, when you take that projection into account, where it's located, how fast it appears to be moving, the end result was that object was only moving about 175 to 195 miles an hour, which is the speed of any twin-engine business prop plane typically cruising. And it was moving in a straight line. And at the altitude they were and the distance they were from the object, then it's very likely that the object itself would not be resolved into an actual twin-engine plane. It was still a dot. It would look like a dot, or a larger dot, actually. So I don't think that showed anything in particular that was very telling. But like I said, this is data that's being released. The thing to me that's important is this entire release is something that should not have happened. Remember this. They have said for years, we are not tracking or investigating unidentified flying objects. And what it turned out to be, it turned out that not only were they were actually capturing and categorizing the different reports. They were doing this. They were lying. And not lying, but they were keeping that from us and telling us that they were not looking at it, but yet they were actually doing so actively. That, I think, is the gold nugget here, not the videos themselves. The videos are really not very conclusive yet at all, only because they release like short segments, so it's nothing to me. It doesn't mean anything yet.
Now, with both of your backgrounds, I'm talking to Eric and Mark at the same time here. What would you say are some of the more credible cases that may provide maybe some evidence of alien or something that's not of this earth? Is there a specific case that you could refer to, whether it's Rendlesham, Roswell, what case sticks out to you that you find that could be credible, if any? Mark is saying none.
Well, no. Okay, I have to be. I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that there's no cases out there that aren't credible. I think that there's quite a lot of credible cases out there. So one of the things that I wanted to mention was the cases that are credible are usually few and far between. And I'll tell you why. You would think that everyone has these cell phones now. Everyone's going to record a something, and so we have greater chances of recording things that might be significant. And I'm sure Eric agrees with that. Mm-hmm. The problem is, unfortunately, as true as that might be, it also increases the number of false positives we get by probably 1,000-fold. So whereas you didn't see this happening before, now with everyone with cell phones, we literally get many times the number of cases, and that's just many times the number of the birds accidentally photographed in a most extraordinary way, or etc. It's just incredible, and I think that the more people that look, the better. The more imagery we get, the more video we get, the better. I think that just because I may not personally believe that a single cell phone video is going to be the be-all, end-all, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done at all. I think that it should be, because it helps us and tells us about what we should be looking for. And I think that's really important too. Eric, what do you think?
I prefer if you film something and you're not sure, report it. I always appreciate that people upload a video, report an experience, and let me look at it. Let us look at it as MUFON and make a determination. A lot of them turn out to be something explainable. But put it out there and let us look at it. Good cases are very rare.
Yeah.
But they will happen.
Yeah, I agree. And they are rare. And I want to answer Travis Nagy. Is there a MUFON in Canada? Yes, there is. We do have Canadian representation, and I can't tell you who is the director for the different provinces, but that's only because I can't get into the what we call the CMS system at the moment, because I don't have it in front of me. Eric, I don't know if you know do you know anything about the Canadian folks who are in MUFON, the Canadian leaders?
The only name I've learned recently is Stu Bundy. Are you familiar with him?
No,
Stu
is he in Canada?
Yeah, he is up there. He is the head of something.
Travis, does the name Stuart Bundy mean anything to you?
Bundy?
Yes.
He's the associate director of MUFON in Canada.
Well, there you go. See, thank you very much, Bill New York Skywatcher.
Also, I just want to say this loudly so the people that are watching on my channel know to go to SkyTour LiveStream. Those that are watching on my channel, on Bill NY Skywatcher, please go to SkyTour LiveStream to see the presentation right now that's going on with Mark D'Antonio, Keith Ickes, Eric Hartman.
Okay, let's stop right now. We're going to get this straight.
We're going to say his name right.
Okay. The last name, say it with me.
Ickes.
Okay, yeah, Keith Ickes. Okay.
And now Mark just signed his death. I will murder him.
If you don't know,
so please, those that are watching on my channel, you can still watch here, mute it, but go to SkyTour LiveStream to see what Mark is discussing right now with the panel.
And that's SkyTour LiveStream with Mark D'Antonio. Is that okay, Keith? Is that better?
And those that are in the chat room at SkyTour LiveStream, please keep posting your questions, and we'll get them to Mark and Eric and Keith, Ickes, and everybody else that's here. So go ahead. Keep going, guys.
No worries, yeah. So anyway, so I just want to make sure that you understand, Travis. You're welcome. Yes, Stu Bundy is the name, and that's the name that Eric told us, but I don't know. I don't know who Stuart Bundy is. I've never met Stu Bundy ever, and that's unfortunate. But that there's a point where
I'll make that happen.
I'm sure that Bill New York Skywatcher will make all these things happen, which is really, really good. And just so everybody knows, I want to put a big shout out, actually, a big thank you to Bill for actually letting his home and studio fill up with how many people are actually staying here, Bill?
Yeah.
I would say 7, 8.
Maybe 7 or 8 people, yeah.
After a tornado?
After a tornado, in which, by the way,
Bill's
just so you all
place.
know, Bill's home was damaged by this tornado, and my introduction to it was to see him on YouTube on a rickety ladder, 25 feet in the air, trying to clear a big tree off
Yeah.
of his roof. Now, he could have waited for someone to come in from the town in a week and a half to help, but he didn't do it. Hi, Ted. And so he did it by himself because that's the way he is. He always does everything by himself.
And another thing is neighbor helping neighbor, because I've been doing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, he runs next door to make sure that the neighbor knew that the power was back on. When it finally came back on, it came back on like 3 hours ago, I think.
Yeah.
And he ran out and shut the generator off and cut back over to the city power, and then ran down to make sure his neighbor's generator was off. The guy's really really good guy, and he doesn't get enough credit. And I joke around with him sometimes. He's always interrupting me and getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
But he's good. He's a very good guy.
Especially if you listen to SkyTour Radio on KGRA. You people don't have no idea what goes on behind the scenes, off air, on the content, because Mark gives me a hard time, so I get revenge.
I sure do. And you know what? It's okay. And one of the things that we do, exactly tonight, he is a great guy. And one of the things that's funny is...
Let's not forget about Amanda.
No, that's right. I was getting to that. That's what I was about to actually say. Amanda is the other part of SkyTour LiveStream. We've tried to get a hold of her several times tonight, and she's just nowhere to be found. A number of us actually sent her messages, and we have not heard from her yet. So maybe she's getting much needed sleep.
Yes.
And
again, we want to thank everybody that's in the I was going to say KGRA
Well,
in the SkyTour LiveStream chat, and hello to everybody there. And we thank you for joining us here tonight. And we're going to keep going for a bit. It is cloudy here. We're hoping that maybe we'll get some breaks. But it's all about us all having a good time here after the storm. Mark was gracious enough to still come. Jenny's here, also from Texas. There's a bunch of people from all over the place. And a good friend of ours, Commander Cobra, host of SkyTour, Task Force Griffin, will be here on Saturday. So we're hoping to have some kind of special presentation live here on SkyTour LiveStream, hopefully from the Pine Bush Cup and Saucer Diner, and that would be really awesome if we can pull that off. So that's what we're going to do, and if not, we're just going to do it from here, and we're going to have a great time. So make sure that you tune into SkyTour LiveStream. We should be doing something really soon here.
yeah, that should be great. And for those just joining us, the bright object you see in the center of the screen, just below center, that's Jupiter. Jupiter is bright enough to be seen through the clouds. And actually, when you look at Jupiter through a telescope on a cloudy night, you can actually see it better sometimes than when you have it fully in the clear. And the reason has to do with the clouds act somewhat like a filter.
Really?
And they actually make it look a little better sometimes. Now, I remember looking at Jupiter with a 20-inch diameter refractor. Now, that's a big instrument. That's a 35 or 40-foot long telescope. And it was in a big observatory that was so big that the whole floor moved up and down to meet the telescope whenever you would move it. And so when I looked at Jupiter one night, it was light clouds, kind of like it is tonight. And when I looked at these light clouds, I saw no less than 19 separate cloud bands with this big refractor.
Wow.
Okay, and that was with light clouds. Now, because of the 20-inch diameter, when you look at it on a clear night, what you find is that the brightness of Jupiter is so much that you really can't see too much detail. Actually, some of that detail is washed out. And now, the alternative would be, as people will say out there, well, just use a filter. Absolutely, you could just use a filter, but using a filter might not actually show you anything more than you could see with some light clouds. Now, the light clouds may disturb the view a little bit, but on many occasions, they actually help stabilize the view. I know that sounds odd, but after doing this for many, many years, I can tell you that sometimes clouds can be your friend, especially when looking at planets. But it's rare. Everybody wants clear skies. Me too. Hopefully in a couple of years I'll be able to move the SkyTour LiveStream observatory, the John Zach Memorial Observatory, to Arizona, where I will have it under a fully dark sky at all times. And I wanted to make it an automated building, an automated system, so that I can run it from anywhere in the world. So I may not necessarily have to be in Arizona, but I will certainly want to be in Arizona. And then I'll be able to actually run the observatory from anywhere and do a SkyTour live stream.
Now, I didn't mean to interrupt because I do that all the time with Mark.
And he's interrupting, but go ahead.
But I'm going to get Keith back here. But before I go,
Giggity.
what I just wanted to know, because this is a question I always wanted to know.
Giggity, giggity, goo.
What is the difference and what are the pros and cons between a reflector and a refractor telescope?
You know what? That's an age-old question. I can tell you this. Refractors are typically better for looking at things like planets. Now, refractors are also typically slower instruments. That is to say that, not meaning they move slower, like I'm going over here, but not that, but more like that they're optically slower. So that we measure, for instance, lenses on a camera with f-stops. You can have an f1.5 lens. That's a fast lens. An f10 lens is a slow lens. It doesn't admit in enough light for you to see things the same way that an f1.5 lens or an f2 lens or an f3 lens would show you. So we have the same thing happening here with refractors. Refractors tend to be slow instruments, although there are some rich field refractors, and there are some refractors that actually are faster. I have an f4 refractor, a 5-inch f4 refractor, and this is a refractor that will eventually be mounted on the SkyTour LiveStream telescope system in the dome so that we can actually do multiple things at once. Right? So these are good to have. Now, refractors are really good for things like planets, star clusters, and they show things well because they're all lens systems. There's no reflected light being used in there. Now, why would that cause any problem? Well, when light comes into the telescope, like we have now in the SkyTour LiveStream observatory there, the light comes down and goes through this glass plate at the end of the telescope. That's called a corrector plate. And the light hits a big mirror, bounces up to a second mirror that's held in the center of that corrector plate at the end of the telescope, and then bounces down through a hole in the main mirror, and then to the eye. Now, if you're thinking and you see that in your mind, you see that this is what's called a folded path telescope, a folded optical path, all right? And these folded optical path telescopes have a special name. They're called Schmidt-Cassegrains, okay, or CAS. People call them CAS, C-A-S. And the Cassegrain system is really brilliant for being able to look at nebulae and other faint sky objects, which is why we use it for the SkyTour LiveStream. But you can't really get the best view of planets with a reflecting telescope because of the fact that the mirror and this constant bouncing of the mirror causes problems with the way the light can focus at the end, at the eyepiece. Now, having the way light focuses in a refractor, you have a similar issue, all right? Because lenses are curved, when the light comes in, you actually have red light, green light, blue light, RGB, if you think of it that way, and they focus at different places and on the focal plane. But with certain refractors, the refractors are made in such a way that the light will all focus at the same place, and you won't get anything with you won't get any strange red banding or blue imagery, a little blue highlights here and there. So, but that's the thing about these refractors, and they're very good. But then you can't have a very large refractor without having a very, very large building. For instance, when I told you about this 20-inch refractor, if you make 20 inches with your hand, that's not very big. It's about the length of a computer keyboard, maybe a little longer. Well, but the telescope is about 35 feet long, and then you have to house it in a dome, which is even bigger, right? So that's the thing about these refractors. They take up a lot more space, but they give superior views of things like planets. That's why I could count 19 cloud bands on Jupiter with this refractor without even trying, and that was through light clouds. So, but a reflector, now see, with a folded optical path reflector like I have an instrument which is large, and is a giant light bucket. It can pull in a lot of light very quickly and make some beautiful imagery of nebulae and things like that. That is gas clouds out in space. But when you see these on the frame, when you see these on the image, you don't really realize that this was a giant light bucket, and it's a very small profile, a very small footprint. It's because the light's folded so many times. So there's benefits and the advantages that you can have a very large light bucket in a very small space. Another thing is when the astronauts fly up to the space station and they want to use telephoto lenses, they use these catadioptric lenses. They're actually lenses that actually have mirrors in them, okay? And they are like these mini Cassegrain lenses. They actually have the hole in the center, light goes down, hits the main mirror, hits a secondary mirror up near the top of the barrel, and then goes back down through a hole in the mirror. And this is what happens, and this is where you see this, being used. You see it at the space station. The process by which the Russians allow a certain weight to fly into space, that's sort of changed a little bit, and I've seen some astronauts use regular telephoto lenses because they don't weigh much more than the mirror lenses. But they try to make they try to use mirror lenses when they need to do some really higher magnification views. But I can tell you this. No one has a corner on the market of telescopes like Paul from P&K Space Imaging. And I'd like to have Keith tell us a little bit about Paul's, I call it an arsenal of telescopes.
It is that.
Yeah. Tell us some more about that, will you, Keith? Because I really like
what do you
Paul's
want to know?
arsenal.
I mean, the guy has amassed quite a collection over the years.
I know. He must sit around and just have them around him going, mine,
I mean, you got to figure
mine.
he has the 70 millimeter and the 80 millimeter refractors.
Yeah, now those are refractors, and they're 70 and 80 millimeters. So if you just divide that by 2.54 to figure out, or 25.4 to find out how many inches that is.
Yeah. Okay,
and you figure out what you got here for telescopes. He's got some fairly good sized telescopes. Ted says, show us.
It starts at the 8-inch HD, and then of course we went up to the 9.25, and then of course he has the 10-inch tube, and then the 11-inch tube, and then the 12-inch Meade, and hopefully maybe even bigger soon. So.
Wow. Yeah.
You never know.
We have lightsabers here,
Being
folks.
attacked by a lightsaber.
Yeah. And I'm here. I am unarmed. I can't believe it. Oh no. I won't shirk my responsibilities.
But that's a good thing about Paul, though. I mean, he gets better and better as he goes.
Yeah, he does. Pardon me. I gotta have a lightsaber fight.
Get out of here, D'Antonio.
I got you.
Ickes got you.
Ickes. It's Ickes. It's Ickes, folks.
D'Antonio.
It's not Ickes. It's
I
Ickes.
will be more powerful than you could ever imagine.
That's right. You're part of a rebel alliance and a traitor. Take him away.
Oh, now we just got totally unprofessional.
Oh man, here we go. Oh, see, now we go.
Here we go.
See, now this is only for the video. What you're hearing, yes, it's a real lightsaber, Laurel. We actually, I accidentally cut Keith's arm off. That's why we stopped. It's really not very pretty here, but at least it didn't bleed. It was immediately cauterized. That's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see Ronald put his pants back on.
Okay, I'm not even going to go there.
Hungry?
I am not going to go there. Okay, so in the room now we have, about 5 people around us here.
He's a rebel.
And we're having a lot of fun, I agree with that. But I'm glad they're actually able to tell you about some of the things that are going on here. Yes, the Pine Bush conference or festival has been postponed until June 9th, but we shall return, and I'll be back here to do this again. I'm defending my honor here.
Oh, your Schwartz is bigger than mine.
Yes, sirree.
Uh-oh. Great, Mom took it away from us.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Oh, yeah, see.
I didn't do this shit.
Oh my God.
Ay. Well, you know what? It's getting crazy here, and there's no doubt about it.
We had a whole show, and all of us had a couple drinks, and leave it to Mom to drop the first bomb.
Yeah, I'm actually I don't drink actually, but that's just me. So I'm kind of considered the nerd of the bunch. I think.
Speak for yourself.
Are you also a nerd?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, Keith's a nerd in a few different ways, I think.
Yeah. I'm a big dork.
Eric, I think, is a nerd.
Let's go back.
He's definitely got a nerdy bend to him. And then we have Bill, New York Skywatcher, who's, well, I can't call him a nerd. He's just like...
Well, you know what? Thank God we're living in the age of, nerds being cool.
I think you're right, actually. I'm happy to be a nerd.
Yeah.
I'm just not a drinking nerd, I guess.
You know what made nerds cool?
What made nerds cool?
Believe it or not, I think the turning point was Iron Man.
You know what? That's pretty cool. I think you're right.
I think that movie just totally turned it for everybody. It's like, oh, this guy has a screwdriver and he just made a flying suit out of metal.
That's funny. That's funny.
People still calling me?
And for those, again, that are in the YouTube chat, if you have any questions for Mark, Keith, or Eric, please ask them and ask them.
Oh, very good, Bill. Very
That's
good.
I can't do the
Lord.
ask. It's really tough for
You
me to
just
do
did
that.
it.
I
You
know.
did it. That's fine.
Please do so, and we'll get them to everybody here. And to continue on, the weather is a little bit cloudy. I'd rather
still see Jupiter in the middle there.
There you go. But we take the clouds over those tornadoes any day.
Yeah.
Exactly so.
Just going with what we got.
Yeah,
You
we're
know?
actually very happy we actually have a home, here with
Really?
at all, because Bill kind of almost lost his house in
Yes.
a sense. I mean, he had trees
Very
all over the
close.
place, a lot of trees falling, and there are people that did lose their homes.
Yes.
We actually drove by several of them,
And a couple people lost their lives.
cost, 2 people died actually, and minimally 2 people, and I'm not sure if more, but this has been a disastrous time for a lot of people in the Newburgh area and in Connecticut. I mean, in Connecticut, a lot of people were, forced from their homes because of a tornado that came through there. It actually came through a few miles from my house, and I ended up seeing it when it hit, and all of a sudden we had these straight line winds coming in, and they just went from like 10 miles an hour to like 60 miles an hour.
Did you have
within
actually any
5
tornadoes up in Connecticut?
Yeah, we
Like
did.
one
We
touchdown?
Yeah, in Oxford, and around Oxford, Connecticut, which is just a couple miles away.
Oh, wow.
And we ended up having quite a lot of damage down there as well. And you saw trees, and you saw all kinds of damage all over the roadways. But see, tornadoes are weird, and that's why I talked about this whole thing about habitability of the planet before. Tornadoes are weird, and when they touch down, you think of them as just going in a straight line, brrr, make a big, dig a hole in the ground and just go further. Well, see, it doesn't always work that way in areas that have undulating terrain, hills and so forth. Sometimes they slap around, they bounce around as they go, and they
They can even backtrack.
Yes, that's right. They can backtrack and slap back in the other direction, and they're kind of like, think of the hose. You're holding the hose like 10 feet from the end, and you turn on the water really hard, and it actually starts swinging around crazy, and that's kind of tough, But you have that happening, and of course, that's sort of how a tornado seems to work. But of course, it's sucking. It's going the other way.
Yeah.
So it slaps around, and so that's why a house can be destroyed, and then the house next to it's just
Just
fine.
a crazy week.
Yeah, very crazy.
Okay. Laurel actually has a question for you, and this goes for both of you, Keith and Mark. She's a newbie, and she has a telescope that has been assaulted.
As long as it wasn't touched by a cat. I mean, cats we can't deal with.
That has been assaulted with dust and moisture.
Okay,
and
we can
cat
handle
hair.
it.
There.
Oh, cat hair. Oh, here we go.
How does she fix it?
Okay, first things first. The first thing you want to do is don't bring any liquid in contact with it yet. What you want to do is take some air from like a little duster and try to blow off as much of the stuff as you can, because think of it as everything on that mirror is a potential abrasive that can actually scratch that mirror.
Yep.
And the more you scratch a mirror, you may not even see the scratches. It's actually...
Until you don't want to.
Until you don't want to. That's right.
You see something in there, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's... Oh, wait a minute. That's
right.
not an alien ship. That's a
Yeah.
scratch.
Now, I'm going to tell you something, too. I'm very tempted when I look at my the glass corrector plate on my telescope in the observatory. It's very tempting to want to scrape that and clean it off and just use some kind of soap and water and just wipe it down. But you gotta really resist doing that because it really does not affect the optical quality. Believe it or not, it really doesn't affect the optical quality.
Sometimes you need to get, like, if it's an oily substance, like it's something that definitely has to come off. And what I've used in the past, actually, if you actually absolutely have to take the mirror out, and it depends on what mirror you're talking about. If you're talking about the back mirror or the eyepiece mirror, you know, I have used all natural beeswax to actually clean the mirror.
Oh, have you?
And actually, it works really well. And you have to use a really really soft microfiber cloth. But it works really well, and it actually coats the mirror where not a lot of stuff stays on it. Then even dust will just kind of wipe right off it. Like natural beeswax is one of the best polishes for windows, for mirrors that you can find, and you can even use it on like your bathroom mirrors and stuff because your mirrors won't fog up when you take a shower. Then, you know,
That's interesting.
It's really, as long as it's 100% natural beeswax, and I have used that on scopes before, and they've come out gorgeous.
And just to make a quick note that we're gonna try our best to get P&K, Paul and Keith, on a SkyTour radio show. And maybe we'll do it live, but if not, we're going to pre-record it and have it air this Sunday. Hopefully, I'll get the station back tomorrow of KGRAradio.com. And don't forget that not just here on SkyTour LiveStream, but you can hear Mark D'Antonio and Amanda Curran, who usually is here, but is probably sleeping and getting some well-needed rest because she never rests. She does so
Didn't
much.
we tell her to set her alarm for 4 hours?
Yeah, I did.
And yeah.
But she does so much for everything that everybody does, especially with Mark. She does a tremendous job.
Type into Skype, you're fired.
I will not do that.
You know, they replay the chat, so she can always go back.
Yeah.
But a shout out to Amanda, and hopefully she'll come on soon because it's getting late, but we're still hanging in there.
That's okay. If she doesn't make it, she doesn't make it.
Exactly,
No,
but
and it's okay.
But she will be there for SkyTour Radio.
Yeah.
It's actually like almost 2 a.m. for her right now.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
And so
What is it
that's
for us?
kinda-
It is.
It's 1 a.m. for us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody look out for that. We're going to do something special for Sunday night, whether it's a pre-record or live. We're going to make it happen. And P&K, and he's been a little hesitant to be as a guest, but we're going to get him on the show. And
means-
Well,
He means
here's my
Paul.
Yeah, I
point
wanna
with
hear
this.
this. I wanna hear this.
I don't want to go on to a radio show without Paul.
yes, I agree with that.
Like, I don't want to do it myself because, you know, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Paul said he was okay with me being the voice and all that other stuff, but when it comes down to the technical questions that he'd answer, I don't have that knowledge, where
Right.
Paul does.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I just think, you know, since we branded the channel together,
Right.
I
No,
don't
I
feel
agree
right
with
doing
that.
it myself. I'd rather have him, you know, with me. And it sucks that he couldn't come up.
Well, as long as you got his phone number, because I don't necessarily need
yeah,
a
we're gonna
Skype.
try. I'm gonna call him tomorrow and see, you know, what kind of setup we can do to try to feed it through, and if we can get him on a landline, and maybe you can call him from Skype,
Absolutely.
and we'll figure something out.
So everybody that's listening right now, don't forget SkyTour Radio on KGRAradio.com. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Mark D'Antonio and Amanda Curran.
Following
So make sure.
following the Commander Cobra show, which is absolutely a fantastic show.
And Commander will be here
And
on
that's
Saturday.
just getting today. That's right. Commander will be here on Saturday. He's going to come down for the festivities. That is going to be it'll be a good time, and we'll probably have Commander also on our show as well.
Yeah, if anybody thought they missed Pine Bush, you got 2 more weeks to plan it if you decide to come.
That's
right.
right, June 9th.
It's June 9th.
Yep.
I was originally supposed to go. I have conferences every month of the year, and I was originally
That's true.
I was originally supposed to go to Florida from the 7th through the 11th of June, but they actually made a mistake at their end, and it's really the 14th through the 18th of June.
Wow.
So now that opens up the 9th again, so I can come back for Pine Bush.
But aren't you and Eric doing something together coming up?
That's what I'm getting to. Okay, because it's not too long from that 14th to the 18th. I think it's just after that, the following week, I go up and I do this a presentation for the Massachusetts MUFON. Correct, Eric?
Yes, the 24th.
The 24th. That's right, and that'll be in Norton, Mass, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder how far that is from me.
Oh my!
Am I getting mileage for this? How much you paying me? What's going on here?
You want to get paid.
Hey, you guys are both MUFON, so
Your mom worked a Mr. Miyagi magic on my knee back here.
really.
Like I'm just like, ooh, this is nice. Like I'm actually sitting like pain free for once.
Ladies and gentlemen, please ignore that last comment.
I don't care. I'm bragging now because man, it feels good. Like finally.
When Mark just did that, if anybody goes to the KGRA radio archives, you've got to go check out the April 1st show. Yeah, exactly. That's what it reminded me of.
I know.
That was a great recorded episode. And the funny thing is, Mark, Amanda, and I did not plan this. It was spontaneous, and it was one of the best off-air, unscripted shows that you could have imagined as an April Fool's segue prank kind of a thing into a serious content where Mark was discussing hoaxes. Mark, discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, you know what happened was I wanted to have a show where we talked about hoaxes that changed our culture. And so everybody thinks of the War of the Worlds. You know, we had Orson Welles do the famous H.G. Wells War of the Worlds radio play with the radio players. And that was a fantastic show, but it scared a lot of people, but only because they didn't hear in the middle of the commercial breaks where they said this is just a radio play, this is not real. Okay, and if somebody actually took the time to listen, they would have seen it and known that it wasn't a real thing. But that whole process, that whole radio show, that whole that whole radio play actually is seated in our culture as the most amazing thing that that scared a lot of people, but also just was I don't know, the kind of thing that really introduced a lot of people to quote unquote Martians. But you know, we know now that there's no such thing as Martians per se. There may have been, but in the form of perhaps microbial life in the past. All right, but the show I wanted to have on was to basically talk about these hoaxes that actually changed our culture. So we did talk about that and a few others, but we started off by saying, hey, why don't we make one of our own and then turn around and expose it, tell everybody what it was. Now, it happened to be that it was April 1st on a Sunday, but it happened to also be Easter. So we thought of having, perhaps if I was kidnapped by the Easter Bunny.
That was funny.
That was funny.
Oh
yeah.
my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
It was actually a really great show. Another thing though, I want to mention to everybody, you need to go to fxmodels.com, and Mark may give out the information where to get these models, but Mark created these models that is a collection series, and Mark can go into more detail on that. They are amazing models. I was blessed to receive 3 of these models, and they are really the coolest things I've ever seen, and I am so grateful. So, Mark, where can people go get the collector series models and also the craters?
Yeah, Mark, where can I go to get those?
I'll be happy to tell you. Well, the UFOs that we have, these are the.
I'm going to show them on my channel, by the way.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, these are the UFO history makers. They're actually 3 UFOs from cases like these hoaxes we talked about, where they're not necessarily real, but they did have a real impact on our culture. Now, they might have been real. Don't get me wrong. But what we saw was that, for instance, the Rex Heflin UFO back in the 50s was a major player. It changed a lot of people's attitudes toward UFOs. The Area 51 S4 UFO, which is the rumored UFO that was one that was potentially seen at Groom Lake out at Area 51. That was another one. And then, of course, we have the Belgian Triangle. And the Belgian Triangle was this triangular one that was actually seen out in various locations. In fact, a lot of people see triangles. My sister even saw a triangle flying over her house, and she doesn't even believe in these things. And she saw it at 2 a.m. in the morning and was like blown away by this thing flying over her house. So it's a very real phenomenon. There's a very real thing going on. We don't know what it is, and that's what it's all about. We don't have the data to say what's really going on, and we don't have the scientific equipment to verify what's going on at this point.
Yes.
But we want to, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes, he does.
100%.
So if you want to buy any of these craters, our History Maker series, you can go to our site at www.fxmodels.com and go to our store, which is right there on the page. It says Enter the Store. Or you can go to the FX Models Planetary Replicas site on Facebook. And that location is where we have the store as well. It's the same store in both places. And you can buy our History Makers UFO series there, or you can buy any of our 3D printed craters that we made. Now, we took actual NASA data from, some folks that have been very kind to us at the United States Geological Survey. And we took this data and we turned it into some very, very nice replicas, very detailed, very accurate, of craters on the moon. All the craters on the moon are available as far as what we can print out for you. We actually have a certain select few that are already done, but we can actually print out almost any crater on the moon. Actually, we have every crater on Mars that we can print out for people, or location or region. We have a lot of locations on the asteroid, dwarf planet Ceres. We have Pluto from the New Horizons data, which is our latest edition. In fact, I brought a number of those here to Pine Bush as well for sale for folks. Now, they're actually they're very well priced. All the proceeds go to help support what we're doing with SkyTour LiveStream to help keep it going. And, this is something also that P&K Space Imaging is going to get in on with us too. So
Hey now,
that's right. And we're going to make sure that we're kind of doing this together, trying to make it worth our while to help defray some of our costs, because there's some things that we're not telling you that we're coming up with.
Be tuned, people.
Yes, be tuned.
Game
Stay
changer
tuned.
coming up.
That's correct. We have a few things coming up that we're trying to work out. I really want to spill the beans. I really do. But Keith's got his arm around my neck, and he's squeezing.
I did.
He's squeezing, and he's not making me. All right, come on. Let me tell
I
him.
threatened to pop his Adam's apple.
I want to tell him. I really want to tell him. Come on, let go.
Not yet. Not yet. But you know what? We will have it figured out by the time we leave.
We will.
Newburgh, New York.
Yep.
And probably in the next week or so, everybody else will know.
Yeah.
And it's I should say it's game changing for us.
Well, I think it'll be game changing in general, because we're going to have some of the greatest minds, and then us.
Minus one. Yeah.
So we're gonna have, but we'll let you know what it's going to be, and this probably like Keith says.
The best part about it is you all are involved.
That's exactly right, because you all have a role that you may play if you wish, and we're looking forward to that. I believe, and Keith believes. We all believe that getting a lot of people involved is certainly probably the best solution to the problem, because more pairs of eyes make a huge difference. And you'll be part of this with us as we move forward, and we'll tell you more about that in a few weeks when we get to that. Should I say any more, Keith, or do you want to leave it at that?
I think we could leave it at that for now. I mean,
he's a killjoy.
We gave you a tease.
He's a killjoy.
Killjoy? You told me my freaking
I'm on my
alien
mic here.
was a balloon.
Well, it was. But I can call him a killjoy if I want to.
Scientific data.
I'm sorry. I know science is really hard on people.
I know.
If I was science free, I could easily make up the rules of the universe as I see fit.
Flat earthers do.
Yeah, flat earthers do. That's correct. And I can't do that. I just can't do it now. I won't do it again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing, though. If someone does want to come on and argue about flat Earth, I'll take them on any day, because there's certain things they simply can't answer, and I can't tell them that.
Or they'll answer with another question that's not relevant to the question that you asked.
Yes, and I fell for that a few times.
Or they
past.
dismiss science altogether, and if they start dismissing science as we know it, then there's no point in debating them.
That's right. I mean, when they start saying, it's like the people that say we never went to the moon.
Yeah.
So many people would have to have been on the fakery that it becomes serious. Yes, it becomes a serious, a seriously impossible task. So many people trying to say that we went to the moon when, in fact, if we did not go to the moon, I think that'd be pretty obvious that we,
Russia would have blew the whistle right off the bat.
Yeah, the Russians would have delighted in the fact that we didn't go to the moon. They would make that clear. They put egg on our face. But guess what happened?
Middle of the Cold War.
Guess what happened? You know what? One of the reasons why the Russians knew we went to the moon. It's one of the reasons that most of these people don't even think about, that say we never went there. It was because they too could detect the signals coming from the Apollos on the moon. And that's something that you can't fake. You couldn't fake that. So they actually caught the signals as well. They heard the communications between, say, Michael Collins and the command module and NASA. They heard all that.
Now, was there a secret channel, though? That's the debate.
Well, there might have been a secret channel
a secret back channel, not for broadcast.
Well,
probably.
Everything's a broadcast. I mean, everything can come in. Now, they didn't have the types of encryption.
I'm saying for the actual broadcast itself, they might have had a back channel that, say, radio operators could pick up, but it wouldn't be broadcast over live television like the.
Oh yeah, well certainly, I mean, and that's always the case. There's certainly a broadcast that's actually just for technical and problematic things that pop up. They have to talk to flight controllers on the ground, and they'll talk to them, and we don't hear that. Okay, that's for sure. However, I will say that when you see and listen to broadcasts that are coming from the moon, that unequivocally tells you we're there, because it would have cost so much more to actually put satellites that could relay and repeat some messages going there and coming back, that would have given it up as well because of the time delays, because it would have to go there and then come back, not just come back.
I want to ask you about lasers.
Lasers.
You know how, because this is one of the big Apollo things that they think they get you on.
Yeah.
You know the reflectors that were put up there?
Yes,
Apollo 15?
That's the laser retroreflector experiment. Those retroreflectors were made at my university.
Well, here's the thing. They were saying, somebody was saying that they tried to shine a laser or whatever at a certain distance. It was like, I don't know, 20 miles or something. And they couldn't get the reflection back. Like it wasn't powerful enough to come back. Yeah, he's like, but you can shine it at the moon. And they can read the, laser hitting back on the satellite. And there's, you know what it was? It was the LRO.
Okay.
Supposedly they were taking these laser graphs or, however they do the geology of the moon as it flies over.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, how can that be possible? Wouldn't it reflect, not realizing that the moon's reflective, but how do I put this?
I'm still trying to figure out. I mean,
they're basically saying, like, you can't shoot the...
You're not talking about altimetry, are you? Laser altimetry?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I barely understood it myself.
Laser altimetry is how they decide what the height field, basically up and down, the undulating
hills,
terrain,
valleys, craters.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's what laser altimetry is for. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Altitude.
Yes, altitude.
Yep.
But so is that what you're talking about, or no?
Yeah, they were talking about some. There was some correlation between the lasers and how they get actually back, so the sensors read it. Like a reflective. So if you shine something, like I'm not sure exactly how they work. Are they laser altimeters or are they sonar altimeters or are they?
Don't say sonar. That's in the presence of air or some medium that can conduct sound waves, and that's neither vacuum of space nor, I mean, it works in water and
science,
air.
Man.
I know. I'm just telling you.
Is it bouncy ball altimeters?
It's bouncy ball altimeter. They fling a super ball at the moon, and when it comes back, no. I get what you're saying. Actually, no, I don't get what you're saying, but that's okay.
How do they get the measurement?
Okay, well, I would think that if you're talking about the LRO, okay, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter,
yes,
it does a lot of. There's several numbers of. I can talk about the wave traveling across the moon, Laurel. Yeah, in a bit. Sorry. Don't worry about Laurel. I've had my caps lock kept on too by accident.
Yep.
No, the LRO measures the height maps on the moon, and it probably uses the laser altimetry, but it's actually there's actually other ways it can do it too, because it's flying over the moon. They can just take a series of connected photos, and just through that triangulation, they can actually figure out the distance to each point on the surface
what about the
as well.
span? How do they get that data back if they're shooting a laser one way without something to reflect it?
Well, it's coming back. That's the whole thing. Okay, they do it on Mars too, and there's it's basically there's enough coming back so they can actually make that.
So it's picking up some some protons reflecting off the moon's surface.
Some photons are coming back.
Photons,
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay.
Our
Yeah,
brains
no,
are-
that's
or
fine.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
It is. It is. Actually, it's 1:08 and 12 seconds.
So it is picking up just from the
Coordinated
reflectivity
universal
of the
time.
moon, which is what, 11% or 8%.
I think it's 13 or
13,
something. Yeah, it's,
yeah,
it's very
it's
low
right.
reflectivity.
But that's enough for it to receive.
Yeah, and the other thing.
photons.
Yeah, and the other thing is to yes, and
So
Jello.
why do they need a reflector mirror on Earth?
What do you mean on Earth? No, they need
To
a
receive
receiver. They need a receiver on Earth.
Yeah, but why do they need the mirror on the moon to reflect back to Earth?
That's
If the
not
moon's reflected?
well. That's not for the LRO. That's actually for sending. That's actually for sending a. That's actually for sending a beam to the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and then that retroreflector. The way those things are designed is no matter what angle they hit at, no matter what angle the laser beam hits those retroreflectors at, you get a direct beam back along the path at which the laser came.
Which is also a very small amount of
It's a
photons.
small amount of the overall laser.
And that's how we know the distance.
That calculates the distance exactly.
Okay.
That's how we know the moon is spiraling away from us at like 2 centimeters a year. Yeah, but by the time the moon gets far enough away from us so it doesn't really affect our tides, our sun will have already died. So
Yeah, we've
it doesn't matter.
Died it.
I had a question.
Ronald has a question.
Ronald
Ronald's
has a
sitting here
question.
with us.
I had a question about the portal that the UFOs or aliens might be using to get into our space or our solar system.
Multiverse.
What's your question?
Are they from here, or did they actually travel like millions of light years away?
Oh, okay. You know what? Ronald asked a question about the supposed portals or methodologies of propulsion that got the UFOs to us from wherever they come from. Well, now this is total speculation, but let's consider that our science is such now that we can kind of see a little bit into the future, and if string theory is correct, then we will be able to have a conversation about this with more science in the future. But right now, speculatively, let's say this. UFOs are actually, in all likelihood, particle accelerators. All right? That's why they're round. And this is the theory. And or triangular. And these objects, they generate certain particles that allow them to actually leave our local dimensional space, which is X, Y, and Z, all moving through time. So they can leave our 4 dimensions and travel to an in-between place out of our what's called a membrane.
Does time have a designation?
Hang on. All right. Yes, it's the 4th dimension.
I know, but you know how we have x-axis, y-axis, z-axis.
And T.
So it's just with t-axis.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
T. Yeah,
Cool.
we're not used to. Just imagine morphing X, Y, and Z, and now you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was just a
Yeah.
regular t. Or not.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So imagine that now if we have a device that can generate particles that allow us to slipstream out of our X, Y, and Z all moving through time, and none of this is positive science right now. This is all speculative, but it's within the realm of string theory. And I'll tell you about my friend Bob Schroeder's book in a minute. And in string theory, there's a possibility that we could leave our dimensional space and travel off of our universe, in a sense. Think of it that way, off our universe if it's a flat sheet of paper, okay? And that motion off of our universe would take us into something that's sort of an in-between space called the bulk, B-U-L-K, all right?
Sounds like a prison.
It sounds like a prison. Off into the bulk. Off with the bulk with you. Off with the bulk with you.
Send them to the bulk.
I'm not going to the bulk. Don't take me. I don't want to go. So if you go into the bulk, then you're free to kind of punch into the universe anywhere you want. Because in the bulk, there's no rules for light speed. There's no speed limit, which is light speed. None. So we can actually find ourselves moving any speed we want because there's no limitation there. So we could technically go to any place we want and pop back in. Now, what's interesting is, and this is all detailed in Bob Schroeder's book, Solving the UFO Enigma. And Bob's a good friend, a great guy. And Bob basically has this thing where he talks about all of this with UFOs. And if you look at it, okay, I think he's on the right. He's got the right plan. He's got the right idea. All right. So basically, what Bob is doing is telling you that these particle accelerators, whether they're triangular or circular, what we call UFOs, can move in and out of our dimensional space. Well, he's discovered, and I think he's right, that everything that we see them do, shimmering, popping out and popping in at different places in the sky, in what seems like an instantaneous manner, all of that, and the way they disappear, the way they travel, all the changes of color, all the things we see associated with them can be explained using this method of travel, this propulsion, because all those physical effects that we see with our eyes or cameras are something that can be explained with this, with this particular propulsion method, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good seeing that. So I'm pretty pleased that he wrote the book. I have a copy of the book. He gave me a copy, which is wonderful. But look for that book. It's called Solving the UFO Enigma by Bob Schroeder. Very good guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, very good guy. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I think there. So.
I agree.
Yeah. And what does Bill agree to?
I'm not sure. I think I had too many drinks.
Yeah. I don't know what Bill's doing. He's standing with Mount St. Helens.
Yeah, I was playing with the 3D crane.
Sure.
We have a 3D print of Mount St. Helens that we gave Bill a while back, and he just like walks around with it. And it's like a pet. He took it for a walk a few minutes ago, and I think, did it pee okay?
P&K.
Oh man, that almost connected.
Yeah, right.
Ted actually was wondering if this is the age of Aquarius.
Oh my God.
Is this the dawning of a new age? Do you think that?
Tell that hippie.
I think he just wanted to sing a song.
What was it? The fifth dimension.
We have an ABBA fan.
Oh, yes, Laurel has a question that she asked
yeah.
a while ago, and I said I'd
Moonwave.
get to it. So I'm
Go
going to get
for
to
it.
it now. Laurel, that moonwave question is interesting because I've seen plenty of videos on YouTube that talk about this like it's a thing. Well, yes, you see this strange aberration of the moon's image at one point, but what it really is, in my view, is actually it's the heated air from jet exhaust, and the jet is long gone out of the image. You know, it hasn't been there. Maybe it didn't even get seen, and then it drifts across the moon because air is always moving. And it will drift in a unified manner, and when it does, it warps the image of the moon a little bit as it goes across. That, I think, is what's responsible for the lunar wave that everybody is talking about. Yeah, well, that's
the jet wakes.
You know, what do you think, Eric?
Oh, well, I used to see that with this guy, Crow 777, right?
Thank you for
Put those up.
popularizing him.
Actually,
But,
go ahead.
I thought it was a refresh of a screen, but that, now that you mention that, that is even better. It's almost like a contrail, a heat wave behind a jet. That makes perfect sense.
That's what I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Keith, what do you think?
I agree with you, but I also have heard it can be caused by meteorites as well, coming in hot. And
Well,
actually,
the-
not as much, obviously.
Yeah, but,
But it can be.
you're right. I mean, that might actually cause the same type of disturbance, but where meteors burn up in the atmosphere is actually a lot thinner than it is where jets fly, so you might not notice enough of an effect. And if meteors
Possibly.
burn up, you'd actually see something dark, like the streak from the burn.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
It all depends. If you're seeing in front of the moon, that moon's going to wash out that light pretty well.
One more thing.
Can you get Ron a mic at all?
Keith had shot a video of the moon one night, and there was something that was falling past the view of the moon, a dark object. We never did figure out what it was.
Okay, take his mic away. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, you know what, Ronald, you might have been right, but there's a couple times
Talked
when
about that earlier, didn't we?
yeah, we did actually figure out the altitude the object would be if it was a satellite. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of things that do cross in front of the moon. Keith's
Could have been space junk, but it looked a little low to be, from your measurements that you took. It looked closer.
Yeah, but you got to understand too that the image size of these objects that you see crossing the moon is kind of a lie. You're not seeing the actual image of the object, but you're not seeing the actual shape. because of the fact that you've got a telephoto, and when you're looking at the moon with a telephoto, objects in orbit are also made to look exorbitantly large, you know, and extraordinarily large, and it's sort of a such a buzzkill. He says, well, you know what? Yeah, I know. Science.
Aliens.
You know what? I always say this. I say this as a joke to Keith. Science doesn't care what you believe.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Blinding me with science.
Blinding me with
science.
I actually want to bring us something that I know my friend Eric did a lot of extensive research on, and that's the tether incident.
Marijuana. Oh.
And I want to get, and I know Keith, I want to get all three of your opinions on the tether and your explanation on what it was.
Okay.
So I'll start with Keith. What do you think? The
tether.
The NASA tether.
It was a tether.
Okay, but what do you think was seen, those anomalous objects that were seen?
Well, here's the thing. If the tether is in focus and the other stuff was out of focus, now some of them were passing behind, right? And I'm trying to remember this video.
Yes,
from a
that's
while
right.
ago.
It looked like some were passing behind this tether.
Some were passing in front, correct? So, I mean...
Okay, well, thank you, Keith. No, I'm kidding.
I'm trying to think of like... yeah, I can't say. I mean, there's not enough proof there for me to say, hey, there's alien ships flying around a tether in space.
Do you think it was ice crystallization coming off of the shuttle?
Possible.
Okay.
Possible, because the reflectivity would give you that pulsating, you know, from the sun's rays.
And Mark?
Okay, first of all, let me just explain. The tether incident was one of the shuttle missions where they did an experiment where they released a satellite on a tether that was connected to the shuttle for the purposes of determining, I believe, whether they could generate electrical activity along this tether based on its interaction with our magnetic field in orbit as a potential energy source. But when that happened, the satellite was paid out, you know, from the shuttle bay, but the tether broke. And when the tether broke, a lot of debris from that tether broke with it. Now, unlike here on Earth, even though the shuttle was moving over 17,000 miles an hour, so were these little pieces of debris, and they kind of stuck with the space shuttle, just like Pigpen and Charlie Brown always has this dust cloud around them. Well, the shuttle always had a debris cloud around it in space. It was always shedding materials, stuff that had come up with it from Earth.
What was the purpose of the tether to begin with? As an experiment.
I just explained it.
Okay.
Yeah, you were not with your headphones.
Actually,
on,
I
so
was
you missed
looking.
it.
I was actually looking at chat and trying to get
That's
their
fine.
questions.
No, it was meant to determine whether you could get electrical current from this long tether, and the tether when it broke, it kind of went, and it broke, and it started to collapse on itself, but it drifted away, and it was like 90 miles. You know, at the limit, it was like 90 miles away or whatever. Well, anyway, during that time, you saw these objects that were crossing back and forth, and it looked like there were some big objects that were moving in front of and in behind the tether. Well, the thing was, I had National Geographic asked me to do this exact show, and they asked me if I could actually come up with another explanation, and I said, well, I can tell you what I think actually happened, but I said I won't tell you, I'll show you. And so they actually flew me to Dallas, and I did an experiment in this television studio where I actually recreated the tether incident right from the start to finish. And what I did was I made a shuttle window. Okay, I had made a model of a shuttle window. I made a tether, and I made these little particles that I thought, because I was pretty convinced that they were probably debris. All right. So here's what we did. I put the tether 35 feet away, and it was brightly lit. And then in the foreground, hanging from a little wire, I had a mobile with these little tiny white particles on it. And I had the cameraman focus on the particles. And when he did that, the tether went out of focus. Then I had him focus on the tether. And when he focused on the tether, the white particles went out of focus, and they got big and round. And they looked like they were going behind the more distant tether. The reason that they did that is because the tether, being so brightly lit, was totally saturated. It was as bright as it could get. And when it was as bright as it could get, well then, anything that passed by it would look like it's going behind it, especially if it looked a little dimmer.
Wait, what are you saying it is?
I'm saying it was debris.
Debris from what?
The
Just
broken,
a regular
the
shuttle?
broken tether.
I'll go into that.
Wait, you don't think NASA took that in the case to send a tether that wouldn't break into?
Well, they did. I mean, it did break. That's factual.
I know, but but don't you think they would have made a tether especially one conducting electricity.
It wasn't the
They
debris from the tether. It was what in the video that we're watching is actually a day or two later during a close pass of the satellite. The shuttle would discharge, there would be excess fuel cell water dumps is what that was.
Well, they
was
could.
the debris.
Well, it could either be ice crystals as well. I mean, we've talked about that many times
Yeah,
as well.
it's ice crystals.
But it's not UFOs.
No.
No. Okay. Well, see, that's the thing. When we look at this thing, you know, those large things and that notch. When you look at this tether incident,
Aliens.
guys, okay, if you look up tether incident online, you'll probably be just as likely to find the actual tether incident as the video I did with National Geographic, and you'll actually find the video, and it actually has Dutch subtitles because it was actually for some reason the Dutch loved that show, and you can see this and you can watch the experiment that we did in Dallas. It's very, very clear, and whatever these were, whether it was dust particles or debris from the tether, there's no reason for that stuff to migrate away from the shuttle. And the other thing that people said when you said, well, it was ice particles, a lot of the people said, well, it can't be ice. Come on, with the sun so hot. Well, guess what? In space, there's no such thing as temperature. So what happens is things either absorb radiation or they reflect radiation. That's all. All right, or and if they absorb radiation, they re-emit it as infrared radiation. That's all that's happening here, especially with light from the sun. So ice particles are very bright. They have what's called a high albedo.
Oh my God, it's a bat!
They're very reflective. And when they're very reflective, they actually do reflect most of the sun's energy, and so they can last for a long, long time in space. Ice can last for billions of years in space. We know that.
What's interesting is one of the factors is that the camera being used was something that you mentioned earlier in the show, a catadioptric lens.
That's correct, and
Right.
that's why it had a hole in the center.
Yep.
Because it was
All
out of focus.
objects out of focus looked like, they had that spherical shape.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I had specified with the crew that I wanted a catadioptric lens for the camera so we can actually reproduce this exactly. But unfortunately, they only had a regular lens.
Yep.
And I said, okay, we're not going to get the hole in the center when you go out of focus, but understand that you would normally get the hole.
Yep.
Now, the notch was actually a video artifact of the tether itself, and that's something that you need to see a little bit more in detail to understand why it's there, why that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys listening, look up if you look up the tether incident in the space shuttle, you'll actually get the information and see the entire incident. And like I said, you would actually see the actual footage of the tether incident, and you'll also see most likely the footage that I shot with National Nat Geo, and you'll actually see what I'm talking about with when that image is out of focus, it's less saturated. That is not as bright as the tether. So anything going by the tether, even if it's in front of it, will look like it's going behind it, and that's what we saw there. That's exactly what that was.
Exactly.
On YouTube, you'll see several, probably a dozen videos from myself, American Road Warrior, on YouTube, explaining the various ways of determining, what it is. It's one of the most important ones is you can see a focus.
Yes, Laurel. Catadioptric is spelled that way.
The astronaut operating the camera made a focus adjustment at one point.
That's right.
And you can see the tether come more in focus or out of focus
as the particles went from large down to tiny.
Right.
And that was something that was completely, denied and or ignored by the people that said this were UFOs. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you're saying these are big round UFOs, they can't also go down to these tiny little particles when they change focus.
Exactly.
And they couldn't, they couldn't do that.
I remember when I first started streaming on YouTube using my old camera system.
This was last week.
And I remember the camera being slightly out of focus. And if you remember in the tether incident, you had this etch in the objects, so-called objects that were visible on the screen.
Notch.
The notch.
Yes.
The notch.
I was able to duplicate that exactly
Yep.
because the camera was not focused properly, and you can see it clearly. The image that I saw on some of my earlier sky watches, because the camera was not properly focused,
Yeah.
looked exactly like the objects that I seen on the tether. So I know it's definitely some type of a camera anomaly.
Yeah.
Now, what the result of what those objects were, like you guys are debating, I can understand that. But I know there is definitely a camera relation to what was seen on that video. Now, I'm going to ask you guys another question.
Hold on.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. My explanation, what I've been told over the years looking into it, is that the notches are related to what are called snap rings in the catadioptric lens.
I think
No?
that was one theory at first, but
Okay.
I think it relates to a video artifact of the tether itself. Okay, you're actually seeing a rudimentary, like, secondary image of that tether in negative, basically, in that as making that
cause
notch.
those
Yeah,
notches.
yeah.
Because you
They're
do
all in the
know
same
that-
place.
No, they're not. They move around the dial depending on what location on the screen they are.
That's
they
right.
change.
That's right. But no, what I'm saying is they're all in the same place. That is to say that when the object is in the upper left corner, the notch is always in the same place.
Right.
If it's in the lower right, it's in a different place. But it's
Exactly.
always in that place.
There are notch
Right.
zones which I
And now
separated.
the other thing too, you'll remember in that case, which we didn't talk about yet, in that case they were also blinking, and people were saying, "Oh, well,
Yep.
see, they're blinking."
That's rotation.
That's actually the rotation of these particles as
Yep.
they present a face that's more bright and,
Right.
and not so bright as they rotate. So
Exactly.
see, that's all this stuff is broken, easily broken down into these scientific explanations that
Explanations.
are.
Yep.
Yeah, the explanations
All
are.
can be explained.
Well, they can be, and we're not saying that they're wrong.
Yep.
We're saying thank you.
They can be interpreted. Yeah, they can be interpreted in different ways, which is where people get thrown off.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And at least now we know. At least now we know that some of these explanations are better than some others. And I know that for a fact that with the tether incident, as far as I'm concerned, it's a closed case. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
reason to go through
There's
it again.
no question.
You've done some nice work on it.
Oh, thanks.
I did a really good job trying to, decipher it as well. And together, I think everybody's come up with a reasonable explanation. The notch actually was the last thing to explain, but it was actually explainable in the end because of one particular optical physicist who went through and showed exactly how these notches could form as basically a reflective image or an artifact of the tether itself.
I always wondered about that. I wasn't so sure about
Yeah, his experiment
Correct.
reproduced them. You can actually see them.
Yeah.
So and it's positional on the screen, but they always appear in the same place. When they're in the same place in the screen, they're
the
always in the
screen.
same spot.
Yep.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good stuff. And we're looking at the screen now. We can see some beautiful clouds coming across the screen. And we can see that somebody is starting to get into the view. I imagine that's, there we go. Let's get a better view of the clouds. You know what? Why not just go black? Because it's, we don't need to see the clouds, right? In any case, we do have the active chat up. If any of you have questions, let me know, and I will be happy to toss them to somebody else who has no clue and say, go ahead and answer them, and like give them a try and see what happens. That'd be just funny, And I have to tell you, Jade I asked for a little bit of a drink here, a Coke Zero, and every time you ask for anything from him, he always gives you chopsticks with it. So I got a pair of chopsticks with my Coke Zero, in the Coke Zero, and I'm not taking it out because I like it. It's actually kind of a cool garnish, if you will. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for that, by the way.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Mark, I had a question
We have another question from Ronald.
about time frames on, say, like, we can see in the rocks, like on rivers and on canyons, as you can see the different lines made from the water flow over a period of time. Can we figure out the amount of time that was from the water
Okay, Ronald's question has to do with the geological time frames for water running over rocks and so forth. For instance, like when we're talking about carving a valley in water, I mean, it can take millions of years to carve a valley. And so, depending on the type of rock it is, it could be sooner rather than later. If it's a rock that's easily broken down by water, especially water that's swiftly moving or caustic in some way, it's possible that it could actually be a quicker time frame. Limestone will break down quicker than granite, for instance. But you could actually have a river system where you actually see a broken down shoreline. At different times, the water level was at different levels, and it leaves scars behind. It leaves behind evidence that it was there. I've been to several areas where I've actually dug fossils out of the rock walls because I knew they'd be there, basically because I saw where the water used to be, and I figured this was a riverbed at one point, so there's probably fossils here. And I was literally in this little tiny gully, no more than, say, 5 minutes, no lie, and I reached into the side wall, and I slid out this beautiful fossilized blades of grain or of wheat and so forth. It was just incredible, and so once you know what to expect and what to look for geologically, you can actually just sort of walk up and find these things, perhaps, depending on the kinds of fauna and life that was there before. But depending on the type of rock, it'll take a little longer for it to be broken down and so forth, and that's kind of what this is all about. And I think that's sort of the crux of what you're asking, Ronald.
Yeah, that sounds like a good answer.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't have all the answers, but for the things I do know, I tell you, and now I think, hopefully when we can actually do our Sunday night stream or our radio show, we're hoping we can do it live. As I said, Bill New York Skywatcher just got power back here at his studio and home, and we have a good system here. We've got some nice boom microphones that actually make us sound very good. We're right in the room with you, ladies and gentlemen, and it's kind of fun. Eric's got a microphone over there. Hello, Eric. How's it going?
Very good.
See
very
that?
Nice to have this mic.
Yeah, it is very nice. Now you don't have to yell. And Ronald is over there, and I'm not sure what he's doing, but he's holding his phone up, so I have a feeling he's also streaming this. Oh, he's doing a live Facebook stream. How about that? That's really cool. And then we've got Bill New York Skywatcher doing a stream as well of the interior here, doing our thing. So this is a lot of fun. We're having a good time, and hopefully we're making some good progress. If you guys are interested in hearing more, let us know. But I'm getting to the point where I'm probably going to end up deciding to close it down for the night unless I get some more questions. We don't have a very good night, unfortunately, at the moment, but we will come back. Don't worry, we are going to come back because, and not tonight probably, but later on, hold on, Bill's moving things. Oh, God, that was really bad.
Was it?
Yes. Bill wasn't wearing headphones. He could not hear that loud
popping
noise,
sound?
the loud popping noise that was ripping through my ears. Yeah. Sorry, hey, Laurel. Thank you very much for coming, by the way. And yes, Jello, of course. Leave it to you to bring it to the PG rating.
It's all Bill's fault.
Yeah. But I just really want to thank you guys for coming out and listening. This is our first stream from the Pine Bush location in Newburgh, New York, the site of the 2018 tornado, in which Bill and his house were nearly taken away like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
That might have been a good thing.
And along with Toto, otherwise known as his mom. But anyway, it's really cool. Yes, NC-17, that's right. So anyway, guys, I want to thank you for coming out. If you got any more questions, send them up now, and we'll be happy to answer them before we go off the air. But if not, I will see you again, probably tomorrow, maybe, or Sunday, or Saturday rather. we're planning on doing more streams, so you'll see more of us in the near future here.
And maybe a special treat of Mark's presentation that he was going to do at Pine Bush, and he still will be doing. But you'll see it here live on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're gonna stream that and you'll get a chance to see the talk that I've put together, which is, it was actually very well received in Arkansas a few weeks ago when I did it there, and people really enjoyed it because I do actually go out into the audience. I mean, it was like 600 and something people there, and I went out in the audience. And I did this little piece of my overall talk, and it was really cool. And that's as much as I'll say now, but I'll tell you more later, and you'll actually see it live on YouTube. And we'll make sure you can see everything that's going on, too. We'll make sure the cameras are in a place where you can see stuff, and there'll be floating cameras where you'll actually be able to see the stuff right up close and better, so you actually get a better seat actually than anyone's actually had to date. But in any case, I just want to thank you for coming out, and I want to thank Keith for joining me, and for Eric, and for Ronald for his questions, and Jade for giving me some soda, and also being a really fun presence here. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without thanking Bill New York Skywatcher for his hospitality and his studio, and his mom for keeping him in line. Yeah, she's actually great, and he's a good guy. So thank you guys, and we're going to sign off for now, but I will talk to you very soon. Good night all, and keep looking up.